13. The Skirmish and Counterattack. 2 days later, Sueros arrived at the port of Loomis at the head of his troops, and was surprised to see no one. As they finished disembarking, they marched for 15 minutes, and then, a hail of arrows rained down upon them, felling many. The general ordered his soldiers to rush toward the area from which the arrows had come. But behind them came a multitude of Acaros, Terids, giants, and even a Talit, something they had never expected attacking them, along with Ogders who moved with great speed among them, slashing them with their small daggers and hurling darts and star-shaped weapons. They laughed, thinking such attacks could not harm them, but then they began to fall. These Ogders have poison weapons. Sueros tried to warn his soldiers when he realized the situation. His soldiers heard him, but they were too busy fighting the combination of the different races. Even the Talids they had brought were overwhelmed by attackers from all directions. Then the Gor general saw Aelios, escorted by soldiers of various races. Then the administrator gave a signal, and several lighters flew in, wearing Trantor's dark goggles. They each grabbed a Gor, one in each arm, and soared to a great height, leaving the enemy to fall from above. "Retreat! To the boats!" shouted Sueros, realizing that they had all fallen into an enemy trap, something that had never happened to him in his military career, and he never thought he would ever have to give such an order. Camator, accompanied by several giants, subdued a few enemy Talids before Sueros's terrified eyes. They stared at Camator, who stood beside the giants, with intense hatred. "Traitor!" one of them shouted. "We'll see who really betrayed whom," Camator said calmly. Seeing the majority of them fall, a remnant of them retreated, but upon reaching the landing site, they found most of their vessels destroyed. A multitude of Vinfos were there, systematically dismantling their ships from below the water. This caused the few remaining Gors, including their general, to panic and flee in all directions. No amount of propaganda, to which they had been subjected since childhood, could overcome their instinct for self-preservation. But the few remaining, including their glorious general, were captured. All were dejected due to the crushing defeat they had suffered. They were all resigned to the horrible fate that awaited them at the hands of the blood-thirsty Phalusites. Or so they believed. All the Gors had been taken to a building that had been prepared to serve as a prison, except for Sueros, who was taken to Aelios's office. "Greetings, General of the Gors. My name is Aelios. May I know your name?" Aelios asked. This respectful treatment surprised the general, who had expected to be tortured in many ways to extract information. "My name is Sueros," he said. He knew there was no way to deny that he was the leader of these soldiers. "You seem like a great military leader, Lord Aelios." The Gor tried to flatter Aelios. "Oh no, I am not a soldier. We are only following the plan laid out by my Lord Lucas," Aelios replied. "Impossible. It takes the mettle of a military man to have all the soldiers obey without question. All our soldiers and allies knew beforehand what they should do. Although I led them, they deserve the credit, not me." Aelios said humbly, "There has to be more to it. Among your soldiers there were even Ogders. They are timid creatures that would never attack races larger than themselves. Yet they killed many of our soldiers. How did you make them so lethal?" Sueros asked. "The problem with the Gor leaders is that they believe small races are automatically weak. Everyone can become strong by using their abilities to the fullest," Aelios replied. "One of our allies informed us of your arrival 2 days ago, so we prepared to receive you, General Sueros." "Who are they? We didn't see anyone during the entire journey." "Are they that aquatic race?" the Gor asked. "It wasn't them, but it's not in our best interest for you to know just yet. I'll only tell you that we have many friends and allies. You will be our prisoners, but you will be treated well. Believe it or not, we desire peace with you, but we know that your leaders are a threat to everyone, which is why we have spent years preparing to face you. We will not be your slaves, nor will we be annihilated by you," Aelios warned. Sueros was taken to the same prison where his men were being held. "General Sueros, we feared you had been tortured to extract military secrets," one of them said. "Their leader says that even though we are prisoners, we will be treated well," was the general's answer. "I never thought the Phalusites were so powerful," one of Sueros' soldiers opined. "Their leader told me that instead of enslaving other races, they ally with them and even call them friends. I don't understand these people," Sueros lamented. "They used a race that lives underwater to destroy our boats and prevent us from reporting what we have experienced here. But even if we had been able to do that, We would have been executed for bringing the dishonor of defeat, another soldier replied. That's true. The ante himself told me not to try to return if we were defeated, or he would personally execute me, the general replied. He wasn't supposed to tell his soldiers that, but now he had nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, in Felek, Lucas had that feeling he always got when Zariel wanted to tell him something. So he sat down and cleared his mind of all thoughts, a technique he had perfected under the spirit's guidance. Hello, Lucas, the spirit said. Hi, Zariel, replied the no longer so young Lucas. I wanted to inform you that Loomis successfully defeated a Gor invasion, thanks to the strategy you devised, and also thanks to a little Cooney who warned them in time to prepare their defenses. Unfortunately, the vast majority of them preferred to die in combat. After all, they've been indoctrinated with that ideology since childhood. But they captured the leader and about 20 soldiers, in addition to several talents, Zariel explained. Well, I'll ask Felix if he wants to go, or if I should go, Lucas replied. Very well. With that, I'll take my leave. Lucas opened his eyes and saw a Texer in front of him. Did he tell you anything interesting? She asked. Yes, Loomis defeated a Gor invasion attempt. This took her by surprise. We thought it would be several more years before they attempted something like that, she remarked. True, but it seems Yufril and Chill are getting nervous. We need to call a meeting, Lucas said resolutely. An hour later, all the representatives of the different races were seated there. Deslet sat on a rug due to the peculiarities of his physique. The moment we all feared has arrived, Lucas announced. Loomis was attacked by the Gor. As Lucas said this, a deathly silence filled the room as everyone processed the news. How is Loomis? Gazlo asked. Oh, don't worry. Loomis managed to defeat its attackers with only a few casualties. They even have about 20 Gor prisoners and also talents, including their general, Lucas replied. I'm sure Zariel has already contacted our friends the Ephorus, but I'll travel to Loomis to see if they have any information we can use, Felix interjected. I would like to go with you, Lord Felix, Ixtales said. I want to see those Gors with my own eyes. Since my son isn't with me, I have to do something, said the Akun leader. That won't be a problem, Lord Ixtales. We'll leave early tomorrow while Lucas makes the plans to prepare the invasion of the Gor territory. They struck the first blow, we'll strike the last. It will take time, but we'll coordinate it with all our friends and allies. This war won't be like the others. The others were just skirmishes. The Gors have vast resources because they've engaged in centuries of aggression, pillaging, genocide, and exploitation against other races. Their territory is extensive. We've never faced an enemy like this. We'll inform the entire nation, and we'll need a more efficient system to send supplies wherever they're needed. Meanwhile, in the village of the Turos, Tulak, having just returned to his village courtesy of Alios, who provided him with transportation and an escort, finally fell asleep when Zariel appeared to him in his Turo form. Greetings, Lord Tulak, he said. He didn't yet have the same rapport with Tulak as he did with the others, so he was more formal with him. Lord Zariel, it's been a while since we last spoke. Has something serious happened? He asked, sounding worried. Yes, Loomis was attacked by the Gors, but emerged victorious. Since the Gor attacked first, this is officially a declaration of war. You will need more weapons and supplies because the Gor will eventually realize you are here and that you support Felek. Well, I think they won't attack you yet, but they would be much more ruthless if they knew about you. Goodbye. Now you are about to wake up, Zariel concluded. At the same time, Rosu and Arias received a visit from Lumiel, who gave them the same information. Peter also received a visit from another spirit. Greetings, Mr. Peter, my name is Dislal. My brother Zariel sent me to inform you that the Gors attacked Loomis, but they were defeated. The news made Peter hold his breath for a moment, but he breathed a sigh of relief when Dislal finished. That means we're at war now, right? Peter asked. Indeed. They attacked much sooner than we expected, the spirit replied. This is the first time we've spoken. According to the people of Felek, you are the spirit of humility. Or am I mistaken? Peter asked. Well, I feed on the energies emitted by a person who experiences the feeling of humility, Dislal answered. And how do you determine which feeling is compatible with you? It wasn't easy. We used a system of trial and error for thousands of years. Oh, and another question. Where did you come from? Peter asked. We don't know. We appeared in this world with no prior knowledge of anything. We don't know who or what created us, the spirit replied. I suspect that whoever did wanted you to find your own way without interference, Peter replied. I hadn't thought of it that way, Dislel answered. Well, I'll take my leave now. You are about to wake up. With that, Peter opened his eyes, felt the two little dragons curled up beside him, and wished it were a Texa there instead of them. He got up, and they woke up. He went to the stream to wash, followed by his two children, who began to drink water. Lord Peter, it was Sorix. Yes, tell me, the young man replied after washing. We're ready to venture deeper into the forest, and I wanted to know if you'd like to join us, Sorix said, somewhat apprehensive of the Yoken escorting Peter. I'll go with you, but first you must gain the trust of Iga and Koga here, Peter said, smiling. And how do I do that? The soldier asked, eyeing the long claws and fangs of the two Yoken. Come with me, Peter told him. They went to Peter's cart, and Peter got in and took out a large piece of meat from the previous kill. He cut it up and gave it to Sorix. You try to feed them. Cut the meat into small pieces and try to feed them, Peter told him. At first, Sorix threw the meat to them, and they picked it up from the ground. Then they begged for more with their mouths wide open. Sorix mustered his courage and dropped a small piece of meat into Koga's mouth, who swallowed it. Good, you're doing well, Sorix, Peter approved. Sorix repeated the same action with Iga, calming down. He continued like this, and when there was no more meat, both Iga and Koga began licking the soldier's hands, who finally lost his fear of these creatures. Stay here. I'll go get you more food, Peter told his adopted children. They seemed to understand and got into the cart. Impressive, Sorix remarked. As one would expect from Felic's first family, you are all exceptional. That's why my family is indebted to you, Sorix said with a touch of pride. Indebted? Yes, my family and I lived far from Felic. Back then, I was very young, and we went hungry. My father was a member of the army we called the Imperialists. We believed that the ancient Rakashi Empire was created to defend humans from the non-humans we considered enemies. But Felic defeated us, and we all expected retaliation. But they decided to bring Lord Epitres, whom we considered more than just a spiritual leader. He convinced us to join Felic. After that, Lords Felix and Lucas visited our village and saw that we were starving, so they ordered supplies to be brought to our impoverished village. Since then, I have felt indebted to them and now to you. Thus Sorix concluded his story. I understand. You didn't know I was Felix and Lucas's cousin when we met? Peter replied. Yes, a friend told me. I was quite surprised that someone smaller than me could beat me so easily. I convinced myself I had no chance with Miss Atexa, since you were courting her. But even if it pains me to admit it, she seems much happier now than before. I was a real fool, but when I learned about the founding of the new colony and that you would be running it, I decided to volunteer as an apology. I'm not as intelligent as you or the brothers, but I'm quite resilient, Sorix finished. Oh, I can attest to that, Sorix. And thank you for telling me all that, Peter replied. Just then, screams echoed through the woods, accompanied by a guttural grunt. Both Peter and Sorix ran in the direction the screams were coming from. Then they saw it. It's an Ancora. I haven't seen one in years, Sorix said. What they saw was a tortoise the size of a truck with a shell covered in spikes. The settlers tried to attack its legs, but they were extremely hard. It must have a weak spot, Peter muttered. Then the creature opened its jaws with a roar. There it is, Peter said as he took one of the poisoned bolts from its sheath. He fired it into its mouth, making it grunt in pain. Shoot it in the eyes, Peter shouted. This already seemed like a cliché, but there was no alternative. After that, the creature was now flailing blindly, trying to kill its multiple attackers. The colonists resumed their efforts, though the creature wouldn't fall because it was built like a tank. Peter drew his sword, which hung on his back, and attacked the animal's legs, careful not to be hit by them. He finally severed one while Sorix attacked the creature's head, which it was vainly trying to hide inside its shell. Sorix stabbed the creature's neck with his sword. The creature thrashed frantically as it tried to defend itself against its multiple attackers. Sorix pierced the neck again and kept trying to slash the neck still withdrawn inside its shell. Then the poison ran its course. Then the beast collapsed, motionless. The creature's flesh was no longer usable for food, as they had used poison to kill it. But they could make useful things from its shell, such as shields and armor. Some of the colonists set to work while Peter and the others ventured deeper into the forest in search of prey. Eventually, they hunted an animal very similar to a wild boar, but it had horns and was the size of a bison. They cut it into several pieces to make it easier to carry back to camp. Meanwhile, The village of Koresh was taking shape. Meanwhile, Chill and Yufril were talking amongst themselves. Those Felucites are more dangerous than we thought, Yufril remarked. They repelled the attack far too easily, and that talent you discarded was right among them. It looked much stronger than before, Yufril replied. How did that damned Zerial manage to get him on their side? I don't know, but that attack, instead of demoralizing them, has made them much more determined against us. In fact, they knew about the attack beforehand. Yufril said. How did they know? Chill asked. It had to be the Vinfos. Only they could have warned them. It had to have been them. But they won't dare attack our Gors in Trentala. Yufril replied. No, they're not that stupid. Chill agreed. Several days later, Felix arrived to Loomis, accompanied by Ixtales. Welcome, Lords Felix and Ixtales, Aelios greeted them. An hour later, the Gor prisoners were bored. The fear instilled in them had faded. The credibility of the voice of the gods, the official propaganda organ of the Gor Empire, had subsided. Just then, Aelios arrived. My lord Felix wishes to speak with you, General Sueros. The leader of Felix wants to speak with me personally? Sueros asked with interest. That's right, Aelios replied. Ixtales appeared, with his imposing figure. An Akun? The Gor general asked. No, my name is Ixtales. Felix arrived. So you're the one who rules Felix? Sueros asked when he saw him. Actually, my brother and I share that job, Felix replied. How can mere humans subdue creatures as strong as the Akun and the giants? Sueros asked. You're mistaken, General Sueros. People who join Felix do so willingly. It turns out there are many advantages to joining Felix. Isn't that right, Lord Ixtales? Said Felix, directing his attention to the Akun. Quite true, the Akun leader replied. Even so, I don't understand. The general replied. I wanted to ask you, what are your leader's plans, now that you've attacked us, General Sueros? Felix asked. You won't get any information out of me, the Gor said defiantly, but suddenly an idea occurred to him. If he could kill the Felix leader, it would crush the morale of all of Felix. Even if he didn't survive. If you can defeat me in combat, I'll give you all the information I have, he said, mentally congratulating himself in advance on what he thought was a brilliant plan. Is that true? Felix asked. I give you my word of honor, said Sueros, confidently. Ixtales smiled, thinking, this one doesn't know what he is getting into. And what do you ask in return if you defeat me, General Sueros? Felix inquired. You'll let us all go and provide us with a ship, the prisoner replied. Very well, you have my word, Felix responded. Sueros was very confident. After all, he was a Vados, the most fierce variant of the Gors. He wasn't going to lose to a mere human. The rules are simple. Whoever gets out of this circle first loses, or whoever surrenders or is knocked out, Felix explained. Very well, I accept your conditions, the Gor general replied. When they both took their stances, Sueros assumed the traditional position with both fists in front of his chest, like a boxer, while Felix adopted the traditional karate stance, which the Gor found odd. Sueros began his attack with lightning-fast movements that Felix easily blocked with his forearms, and he also blocked his opponent's kicks with his legs. Why so defensive? The Vados asked. Oh, I just wanted to confirm the Gors from Trenala's fighting style, Felix replied. Then he broke Sueros' guard and landed a punch to his side, making Sueros roar in pain. How did he do that? I couldn't defend myself against his attack, and I've never felt such a powerful blow from a human. He almost broke one of my ribs, the general thought. Sueros decided to surprise Felix by attacking him with his tail, but it was the general who was surprised. Felix caught his tail in his hand. I'm sorry, but we already know how the Gors fight, Felix replied. Then he grabbed the tail with both hands, spun around, and with the momentum threw his opponent out of the circle, who fell heavily to the ground. This left all the Gors stunned. Impossible. No human is that strong, roared the reptilian from the ground as he got up. I regret to inform you of this, General Sueros, but Lord Felix only used a fraction of his strength. He has defeated me in combat as well, Ixtales told him, surprising him. Sueros looked at the colossal figure, then remembering everything he had experienced in the last few days, and realized that the Gor Empire had decided to declare war on the worst possible opponent. All the pride he felt for the easy victories won against practically defenseless peoples now started dissipating. Felix walked toward him, extending his hand to help him up, but Sueros, kneeling as he was, lowered his head almost to the ground. Mighty Lord of Felix, have mercy on my people, The defeated general pleaded. Your people? You mean the Vados? Felix asked. Yes, Lord Felix, Sweros replied. And what about the Padar and the Bunda? Don't they deserve mercy in your eyes as well? The general realized he had made a mistake. He tried to say, you don't have to answer now. In a few days, some friends will come to meet you. They are Gors too, but you will notice they are somewhat different from you. Felix said, helping him to his feet. The traitors, the defeated general murmured. After you speak with them, you will learn who truly betrayed whom. For now, you must return to your cell, Felix ordered. Yes, Lord Felix, Sweros said humbly, a feeling he hadn't experienced since childhood. When Felix and Ixtales returned to Aelios's office, Samia was waiting for them. Greetings, Lords Felix and Ixtales, she said. Hello, Lady Samia, he greeted. After arriving here with the news of the Gor attack, I had an idea that could solve the problem of Kuni unemployment in Felic. Since Lord Lucas's post office project is progressing faster than expected, I thought, why not use Kuni to carry urgent messages? For a salary, of course. The Kuni explained. That's an excellent idea, Samia, Felix said, stroking his beard. I'll talk to Lucas when I get to Felic. I think he'll love the idea. Thank you, Samia. Thank you very much, my Lord Felix. Now I have to return to our new colony on the island. Since this island belonged to Mr. Kamador, I think we'll name it after him. I don't think the others will object, said the Kuni hovering in place. The Ephors, who had already been informed of the situation by Lumiel, arrived in Loomis several days later, as Felix had said. Greetings, Lord Aelios, Rosu said, extending his scaly hand, which Aelios shook firmly. I understand that a Gor general has been captured. Is that true? The Ephor asked. Yes, please come this way, Lord Rosu, the administrator replied. When they reached the prisoners, Sweros looked at them with interest. So you are the visitors Lord Felix spoke of? But you are neither Bunda nor Padar, the defeated general remarked. We Ephors are both and neither, Rosu replied. For 200 years, Bunda and Padar have freely mingled to form those you see here, General Sweros, Rosu answered. I understand. In the last few days, everything I thought I knew has turned out to be a lie. My entire concept of how the world works has been turned upside down in so little time, the Gor remarked. I am surprised to hear a Vado speak like that. Centuries of privilege must have turned you into arrogant egomaniacs, Rosu replied. You are right. Some of us Vados are, including me, until a few days ago. I had never known defeat, until now. First, Felic's brilliant strategy dealt us a crushing defeat. And then I challenged Lord Felix to single combat, and he easily defeated me. I've never fought anyone so strong, Sweros said, somewhat embarrassed. It's true. He and his brother Lucas are extremely strong. We also fought Tbem and lost. But not only that, they're also very wise. They transformed a small human village into a great nation where all races are welcome. In just 15 years, Rosu explained. 15 years? Then they're even more impressive than I thought. Annie didn't know what he was getting into by declaring war on them, Sweros concluded. Very well, Mr. Sweros, because I believe you are no longer a general. I understand you promised to give us all the information, techniques, and tactics at your disposal, Rosu said. Although I didn't really expect to be defeated, I must honor my word. My honor is all I have left, after all, the prisoner said. Very well, we will have to take you to Felic. There you will appear before the brothers and all the leaders of the different races, Rosu explained. Leaders of different races? Aren't they the undisputed leaders of Felic? They are, but they don't impose their will by force. They govern by consensus, the Ephor leader replied. What a strange idea, Sweros commented. That's what we thought at first. But when we implemented that system on our island, people did things willingly because their opinions were heard and respected, said the Ephor leader. The more I learn about Felic, the more I like it, the Gor general muttered to himself. The journey took 3 days, with stops at various resupply points, including one where travelers could eat. Sweros truly wished his own people had such advantages. This was overwhelming. All his life, he had believed his people had reached the pinnacle of civilization. Obviously, the Felic were great warriors, but their view of war as a last resort rather than a first made him admire them even more. As they approached Felic, Sweros gasped at the sight of the enormous city before him. Impressive, isn't it, General Sweros? Rosu asked. All this in just 15 years? The defeated general asked. Do you understand now why it's better to be an ally of Felix than their enemies? The Ephor inquired. The prisoner could only nod, taking in the grandeur of what he was seeing. Then a giant, accompanied by an Achaean, human, and other soldiers, approached them. Sweros had never seen a giant, and the Achaeans, whose stature was no less impressive than the giants, was astounded. "Welcome, Captain Rados. Everyone is waiting for you in the council chamber with the prisoner. We've come as an escort." "Thank you very much, Lord Gazlo." Rados gave Gazlo the authority to represent the giants to his old second-in-command to be closer to Felix years before. "Haven't seen you since the fighting tournament in Loomis," said Rosu. "Yes, I couldn't win. I think I'm getting old. Or perhaps the desk work is weakening me," was Gazlo's reply. Sweros didn't miss a single detail of the naturally unfolding conversation, and he was even more impressed. When they arrived at the government building, he didn't see the pomp he was used to seeing at the Annie's palace, but he did see a functional building. When they entered, all the members of the different races were seated in chairs designed for their particular physiques, on either side of the table, while Felix sat at the far right of the table and imagined that the one sitting at the far left was Lucas. Rosu sat in one of the empty seats at the table. "Gentlemen, I have brought the Gor general as we agreed," Rosu announced. "He has agreed to answer our questions," the Ephor leader Anon said. "Thank you, Lord Rosu," Felix replied. "I have a question, Mr. Sweros. How large is your fleet of ships? I was informed that there were between 35 and 40 ships in the flotilla that attacked Loomis. How many do you have left, and where are they anchored?" Lucas asked. "You must be Lord Lucas. It is an honor to meet you, especially after being defeated by you," the prisoner said, bowing his head. "I didn't defeat you. The people of Loomis did," Lucas replied. "A general who doesn't want credit for his victory impressive," Sweros responded. "They were the ones who fought. I only gave them a strategy that has been used for thousands of years," Lucas answered. "Let's return to your original question. Where did the ships that attacked us sail from?" Felix interrupted, seeing that the Gor was starting to do something few people could do, angered Lucas. "It's an old human fishing village that was captured, and a shipyard was built there to construct fishing, transport, and in the future, warships. But for now assemble boats and adapt them for combat and troop transport." The Ante gave it the name Anko, the defeated general answered. "And how many of these shipyards do you have?" Telendi asked from among those present. "That's the first one," Sweros answered. "You were planning an invasion with only one shipyard? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard," Lucas said. "The truth is, we've never faced people like you before. We underestimated you completely. There is another port, but it's only for building fishing and transport boats," the prisoner said, lowering his head. Then he noticed Aya sitting on the table in a chair specially prepared for her. "Who are you?" "I'm Aya, leader of the Kunis," she replied. "Kunis? I've never heard of you. But now I realize it was one of you who saw us without being seen and warned the people of Loomis about our attack." "Yes, her name is Sumia. And you didn't know about us because we lived on another continent for centuries. But life here is much more interesting," Aya replied, smiling. "Very well, another question. What would happen if we seized that shipyard?" Lucas asked. "Well, we wouldn't be able to build any more ships. It would be a serious blow," Sweros replied. "I'd say it would be much more than that. Not only could we build our own ships there, but it would allow us to land our troops, giving us a beachhead to invade Tentrila and eventually attack the Gor capital," Lucas explained, leaving Sweros astonished. The plans of Gor generals, including himself, never extended beyond a month or two. Yet this human was planning a strategy that would take several months as they spoke. This explained how they had been able to build a nation in just 15 years. These two brothers were very different from the humans he had mistreated all his life, and he saw how everyone treated them with the respect he had only ever seen himself and the Annie receive. These were not ordinary humans. One devised a strategy that worked even in his absence, causing his troops to be decimated, while the other one defeated him with the same ease with which he would defeat a child. Who are these humans? Swero wondered to himself. But then he noticed Natalie's, looking considerably older than when the brothers had first met him. There were several Ogders among the Loomis forces, and they killed many of my soldiers. Weren't Ogders supposed to never attack races larger than themselves? The prisoner asked. That was the case in the past. But Lords Felix and Lucas taught us to use our speed and stealth to defend ourselves instead of just running and hiding, the old Ogder replied. I'll tell you more. Our children learned to read, and right alongside the children of other races. The Ogder leader revealed, "Only the Vados and the Padar can read and write." The Gor general replied, "So you're deliberately keeping a portion of your population ignorant. That's deplorable," Lucas remarked. "We're getting off topic again, Lucas." Felix interrupted. "What kind of defenses does the shipyard in Anko have?" Felix asked. "It has 6 watchtowers with archers on each one," the now unemployed general replied. "Is that all?" Felix asked. "Yes. The Ante doesn't believe the shipyard will be attacked. I suspect the Ante has never had a real battle on his hands," Felix remarked. "No, and to be honest, neither have I. I thought it would be an easy victory against you, like the others," the Gor general replied. "In other words, you've only attacked defenseless villages." Lucas stated, "Well, we have attacked villages with their own armies. But the combined abilities of your different races overwhelmed us," the Gor retorted. Meanwhile, the surviving Talids were imprisoned in separate cells designed to withstand their strength. "What are these bars made of? I can't bend them, much less break them." Then Aelios, who had overheard the comment, entered. "Oh, those bars are made of steel, so you won't be able to break or bend them to get out. Why are you keeping us here? Why haven't you given us an honorable death?" One of the Talids asked. "What is honorable about dying in service of a lie?" Commodore said as he entered the makeshift prison. "Why are you on their side, traitor?" One of them roared. "My name is Commodore." "What's yours?" the newcomer asked. "Yulos, servant of Yufril and Chill," he said proudly. "I know it won't be easy, but I will convince you that the only traitors here are Yufril and Chill," the reformed Talid promised. "How dare you blaspheme against our lords?" Yulos rebuked him. "Tell me, how many of us do you think are still alive?" Commodore asked, taking them by surprise. "What does that have to do with your treason?" Yulos asked. The others nodded. "Answer the question, Mr. Yulos." Commodore's tone was more conciliatory now. "Some 500, scattered among the Gor army," the prisoner replied, still on the defensive. "The true number is closer to 200 because when the Gor attack a village, the defenders attack the largest target first, usually a Talid. So the Gor sacrifice us without even giving us a chance to fight. Those of us isolated in different places will die in combat against the peoples we are stalking. But those who are part of the Gor army will be sacrificed in vain," Commodore explained. "A glorious death is never in vain," Yulos retorted, and the others seconded him. "Yes, I used to believe that too. Do you know why Yufril and Chill have made us fight against other races, earning us their hatred and anger? That's not important. That has always been our tradition," Yulos replied. "Oh, it's more important than you think. Because Chill and Yufril feed on hatred and anger," Commodore stated. "No. They created us and care about us. You sought Felix alliance because you are weak," the prisoner defended himself. "Do you really believe that, Mr. Yulos?" "I'm sure of it," the prisoner replied, swelling with pride. "Very well. I will allow you to prove that what you say is true. You and I in single combat," Commodore said in a clear challenge. "I accept. I will show you how a true Talid fights." Later, all the prisoners were chained outside to witness the duel. Aelios, Rados, and other guards of different races were also present. At first, they were given the enormous clubs used by the Talids. Yulos took his, but Commodore refused the one offered to him. "So you're not as cowardly as I thought. You intend to fight me unarmed." Commodore glanced at Rados, who nodded. "I don't need my weapon. Yours will suffice," Commodore said, smiling. "I can't believe your arrogance," Yulos remarked. When they both took their stances, Yulos tried to attack Commodore, but Commodore got inside his guard and grabbed his wrist, effectively blocking the weapon and simultaneously striking his opponent in the face with his fist. He disarmed Yulos, grabbing his club and, spinning, struck him in the side with it, causing him to scream in pain. Then Commodore, still holding the weapon, decided to throw it away. All of this had happened in what seemed like a second or two. Neither Yulos nor the other Talids could believe what had happened. "How did you do that?" Yulos asked, his face still contorted with pain. "This is just one of the many techniques I learned from my master here," said the Talid, pointing at Rados, who couldn't help but swell with pride at his disciple and friend's rapid progress. Yulos wasn't intimidated. He was a Talid, after all. "I admit you're more skilled than I thought, but even so, you won't defeat me." Commodore sighed. He hoped he wouldn't have to hurt him too badly. Yulos tried to attack with his fists, which Commodore easily evaded, while Yulos received a barrage of blows. He staggered slightly, but remained on his feet, so Commodore he began repeatedly striking him in the face and head. Finally, he spun around and kicked him in the head, causing Yulos's eye to roll back and collapsed face down into unconsciousness. Do you still think the alliance with Felik makes me weak? Kamadar said with a smile. All the Talads remained silent, watching the strongest among them lying on the ground, while Kamadar looked on completely unharmed. Later, Yulos awoke again in his cell. Although Aelios had channeled Zariel's healing power, he was still in pain. For a moment, he couldn't remember what had happened, but then vivid images of Kamadar in front of him, beating him, and finally that decisive kick flashed before his eyes. I hope you're more willing to listen now, Kamadar said, opening the cell and entering. Standing among several other Cyclops was dangerous, but Talad tradition dictated submission to the strongest. Everyone knelt, including Yulos, who was still in pain. I'm aware that what I'm telling you goes against everything we've been taught since childhood, but our race won't survive if we don't do something to stop the Gor. The Felucides have offered their help so we can save our race. After suffering a defeat at the hands of the one who is now my master, I met his master, who is even stronger than him. Because of this defeat, Yufril decided to abandon me. But now I follow Zariel. Felik also follows Zariel. And in just 15 years they have built a nation far more powerful than the Gor Empire could ever be. The peoples who have joined Felik have done so of their own free will. They noticed that there are many races that are part of Felik. Lords Felix and Lucas are human, yes, but they are not ordinary humans. They are exceptionally strong and exceptionally wise, Kamadar explained to his new followers. It's true that Yufril created us, but only as tools for his own benefit. I wish for us to be more than that. I wish for us to be free, capable of deciding our own destiny. I know that is something we've never done, but with the help of Felik and Zariel, we can, Kamadar told them. Later, Kamadar was in Aelios's office. Do you think you convinced them, Mr. Kamadar? Aelios asked. For the moment, they are only following the will of the strongest, as dictated by Talad tradition. But eventually, they will realize the truth for themselves. I will take responsibility for them if you wish to release them, Lord Aelios, the Talad suggested. I trust you, Mr. Kamadar. I will. Later, the newly freed Talads escorted Kamadar to a dining room where Aelios had arranged for them to receive a formal meal. They saw several restaurant employees arrive with different dishes of food. They couldn't help but look at them suspiciously. They had heard too many stories since childhood about the ferocity of the Talads. What is this, Lord Kamadar? Yulos asked. I know you're used to rations of raw meat. I've decided to treat you to a real meal, replied the new leader of the Talads. They all looked at the dishes with suspicion. Kamadar noticed and began to eat. The others imitated him. This is delicious, my Lord Kamadar. What is it? Yulos asked. Here they call them potatoes, and they can be prepared in many different ways. They also have meat, which is also prepared in many other ways. 2 hours after enjoying the sumptuous meal, Kamadar led them to a training camp, where Rados awaited them. You are not prepared for the battles ahead. If you wish to save our race, you must become stronger, Kamadar explained. At first, they started with calisthenics, but found them too difficult. Do you see what I mean? You will have to become stronger to save our race. And so, their arduous training began. Meanwhile in Koresh, Peter was in charge of his children and the rest of the settlement. He had managed to get the other settlers to overcome their fear of Koga and IGA. Peter loved stories and movies about ninjas. Those were the names of 2 of the legendary shinobi villages, so he chose those names for his charges. Mr. Peter, we've already started preparing the land for planting potatoes, berries, and other crops. The soil seems very good for it, said Exat, Ixtale's son. His father didn't approve of him choosing someone of another race as his wife. He was there because he had fallen in love with a female Achaean named Zilpa. Thank you, Lord Exat, Peter said. Oh, you don't need to call me that. I'm no longer in line to be the leader of the Akan. Exat will suffice, the young Akan affirmed. Absorbed in their conversation, they didn't notice a pair of eyes watching them from the thicket. It was a young man whose features resembled those of the Telera, but his skin was dark and his height was lower. He didn't look healthy, though. He looked too thin for a normal person, with reddish blotches on his body, and his legs appeared swollen. Talvo, the impromptu spy, silently withdrew. He ventured deeper into the forest until he reached a settlement of his kind. He entered a hut made of straw and mud. An old man, who looked even less healthy than he did, was waiting for him there. Very well, Talvo. Tell me what you've seen, the old man said to the newcomer. Yes, Lord Zeno. Strangers have arrived. But they're not just one race, they're many. There are humans, Achaeans, Acheros, and even an Achaean. That doesn't look good for us. The plague affecting us is unknown. In these conditions, we'd be easy prey for them. True, but we don't know if they're hostile. The one who appears to be the leader is always followed by two young Yokan. They follow him as they would their mother. Talvo completed his report. Keep watching them, please. We have to prepare in case they attack, although I know we'd be easily defeated. Most of us are too sick to travel and take refuge in the glowing cave. I don't know what else we could do, the old man lamented. After eating some meat and drinking water, Talvo went back on watch. But this time, he stepped on a dry branch that made a noise. He looked around and breathed a sigh of relief, thinking no one had heard him. But someone had. Both Peter and his two pups heard the sound. Then Peter stealthily walked toward the source of the noise. This surprised Talvo, who, terrified, tried to flee, but his legs wouldn't respond. Then he felt his strength leaving him. The last thing he saw was this human walking toward him, followed by the two Yokan. If I must die here, so be it, he thought before slipping into unconsciousness. Upon waking, he found himself lying on a soft surface, the two Yokan staring intently at him. He sat up with a start. Don't be afraid. If they wanted to harm you, they would have done so while you were unconscious, said a voice. When the native looked in its direction, there stood the human, who appeared even more imposing up close. My name is Peter. What is your name? Asked his interlocutor. Talvo of the Tkan, he replied weakly. I recommend you eat. It will help you recover from your scurvy, he said, gesturing to a deep plate filled with berries and wild fruits. Do you know what this disease is called? Asked Talvo. It's not exactly a disease, but a condition that occurs when a person's diet is unbalanced, explained Peter, somewhat surprised that he remembered information he had read many years before. He didn't want to go into detail about the vitamin deficiency either. That would confuse his guest even more. But he did recall the modifications Zariel had made to his body and mind, and was thankful for them. Why are you here? The native asked fearfully. We're here to establish a colony. We're citizens of the nation of Felik, Peter explained. But there are several races among you. Yes, Peter said, avoiding mentioning the main reason most of them were there. Mr. Peter, Exat and Sorix called from outside, as other members of the colony approached. Very well, Mr. Talvo. Eat, so you can regain your strength. With that, he got out of the wagon. They were still living in their vehicles because they hadn't yet built more permanent dwellings. How is our guest, Mr. Peter? Sorix asked. He's eating. I think he'll recover in a couple of days. He seems to be a member of the Teleris, but they're a different color, smaller, and don't look as advanced. I think they have a village near here, Peter said. Are they hostile? Exat asked. I don't think so. And even if they were, I think they're too sick to pose a threat, Peter replied. The other members of the colony approached Peter's wagon. Do you know anything about our visitor? Asked an Achero named Nepos, who was present. Yes, his name is Talvos, and I believe they have a village near here. But they can be dangerous, the Achero retorted. True, but we shouldn't start any hostilities. It's better to have good relations with our neighbors. After all, they were already living here before we arrived, Peter explained. 3 days passed, and Talvo felt strong enough to return to his village. Peter had to sleep outside near a campfire. Thank you for agreeing to let me accompany you to your village. I understand you have no reason to trust us. You're right. But it all comes down to choosing between a slow, painful death from the plague or a quick death at your hands. How do you feel? But I don't think the latter will happen since you have a lot of food in that cart. That's what you call it, isn't it? Talvo said. I assure you that we have no ill intentions toward you. We only want to help our neighbors, Peter replied. We'll see about that. The native responded, still suspicious. The entourage consisted of Peter, Iga, Koga, and Sorix. Bringing Exat or a member of the Achaeans along might give the wrong impression. Peter had returned the spear Talvo was carrying. They were armed, but only with the bare essentials, just as a precaution. Although, they wore their armor and swords at their belts. Talvo arrived first to reassure his people. Don't worry, they came bringing food, he said. Peter and Sorix removed the cover from the cart. Inside were several jars of meat and other delicacies, especially fruits and vegetables. Talvo entered the chief's hut. Lord Sino, I brought help, the native said. Talvo, I thought the strangers had killed you, the old man said. On the contrary, the food they gave me has restored me to health, Talvo said. proudly showing the wounds that were gradually disappearing. And you brought them here? The old man almost jumped out of his seat. What did you want me to do? What? Are we just going to resign ourselves to dying from the plague? At this, the old man calmed down. Good. Introduce them to me. Talvos went outside, followed by the old man, while everyone in the small village watched expectantly. Greetings, honorable leader of this village. My name is Peter and my companion is Sorix, Peter said, trying to sound official, just as Lucas had instructed him. Welcome, Mr. Peter. My name is Sino. May I ask what you want from us? Have you come to enslave us? The old man asked suspiciously. For the moment, we are only interested in your friendship. Peter replied. For the moment? Sino asked, alarmed. Peter realized he had made a mistake. No, what I meant was that if you have any goods you wish to trade with us, we can. That's all, he explained. But, I want you to tell me how you cured Talvo of the plague. The old man asked. The plague, as you call it, is because you don't eat fruits, vegetables, and berries. Peter explained. I understand. We haven't been able to eat any of that since the many legs arrived. The old man explained. What are the many legs? Peter asked. They are elongated monsters with many legs, as the name suggests. They only eat vegetation. They are very aggressive, territorial, and we believe they are poisonous. One of them bit one of my men who got too close, and he died the next day. They seem to only eat plants, but they're still very ferocious. The chief explained. Could you show me where these creatures are? Peter asked. Talvo, take them to where they are, Sino ordered. Later, they were in an area full of bushes with berries and other fruits, as well as fruit trees. Then they saw them, about 20 centipede-like creatures, but much larger. Both Koga and IGA stared at the beasts, baring their fangs and extending their claws. Peter touched their heads. Relax, he told them. They had grown accustomed to Peter's words, understanding them more through his tone of voice than the words themselves. I wonder if this is another one of the souvenirs that Zariel or one of his siblings brought back from Earth millions of years ago, Peter thought. He knew that not all creatures that had ever existed on Earth left fossils, because fossilization is a rare event. They don't seem any more dangerous than Kilzes or Phalionis. I've killed several of both. The secret is attacking their joints, Sorix stated. Perhaps, but I don't have that much experience fighting those kinds of creatures, Peter told him. We've tried attacking them from afar, but our arrows just bounce off their bodies without doing any damage, Talvo said. We'll have to use crossbows. They're specifically made to pierce armor, Sorix replied. True, but we'll also need a larger force since there are so many of these things here, Peter concluded. Both Peter and Sorix returned to the colony and explained the entire situation to them. They readily agreed. They knew from Felix's history that it was better to maintain good relations with neighbors than to create enemies everywhere. So Peter and Sorix formed a party of 12 individuals, including Exat, Zilpa, and Nepos. They all carried different weapons and shields. The Tkam, as they were known, were terrified at the sight of these towering creatures, armed to the teeth. Don't be afraid. We've come to help, said Peter, trying unsuccessfully to reassure them. But heading to the creatures were. Ideally, we should attack them from several different directions, said Sorix, the most experienced of the group. Sorix took a crossbow, loaded it, and with a single, precise shot, pierced the head of one of the beasts. But, as is often the case with arthropods, that wasn't enough to kill it. So, everyone joined the fray. Their steel blades attacked its vulnerable points, such as its limbs and the joints in its legs, and the segments of their bodies, just as Sorix had suggested. The many-legged ones, as the Tkam called them, tried unsuccessfully to bite their attackers, but because of their armor, they were unable to do so. Half an hour later, the entire party was breathing heavily, but every single creature was dead. Even Peter's sons participated in the massacre, tearing apart the creatures with their sharp claws and fangs, impressing the natives. Once the many-legs were exterminated, the victors amassed as many of these creatures as possible, hoping to find a use for them. However, both IGA and Koga had already devoured several of them. In the following days, Peter and Sorix helped as much as they could to combat the nutritional deficiencies of their new neighbors. We are indebted to you, Felucites. How could we ever repay you? The old man asked. No, we only wish for your friendship. You are more familiar with this forest than we are. Perhaps you can inform us of its other dangers, and perhaps of something interesting we could use, if you aren't already using it. Of course, Peter explained. Well, the only thing around here is the Great Shining Cavern. We used it to take refuge from the great storm that occurred several years ago. I will tell Talvo to take you there whenever you think it's appropriate, the old leader explained. Days later, Peter and Sorix decided to go with Talvo to explore the Great Shining Cavern, as the TCAM called it. Both Peter and his subordinate were surprised to find it illuminated from within. Thousands, perhaps millions, of crystals the size of a human fist were embedded in the cave walls, which were as vast as the interior of a cathedral. What are these stones? Sorix asked. We don't know, but when we tried to use them to light our village at night, as soon as we detached one from the wall, it took several hours to stop glowing, Talvo replied. Could it be that these crystals need to feed on the material of the cave walls? I think that would be one explanation, Peter suggested. As they ventured deeper into the cave, they saw many rock formations that looked metallic but were different colors. I'm no expert on metals, but I'm sure all this is important. Why don't you ask Yavin? He worked as a blacksmith's apprentice for several years and is the one who maintains our weapons and tools, Sorix suggested. That's a good idea, Sorix. We'll also look for tools. I want to cut one of those rocks that contain crystals to see if my hypothesis is correct. Peter, may I ask you a question? Sorix asked. Go ahead, Sorix. Why did you decide to lead this expedition to found the colony of Koresh? You had a comfortable job at the tax office, were well paid, and it was also close to Atexa, the soldier asked. That's easy. The job at the tax office was comfortable, yes, but it was too similar to the work I did on my world. I hated it because it was so boring. Here, I can help others, and every day is a different experience. This wasn't a decision I made lightly. Atexa and I talked about it a lot. She promised she would come and marry me when the colony was properly established. Of course, that's still a long way off, but she and I decided to wait. Well, so far you've performed very well, even without experience. As one would expect from a member of the ruling family of Felek, Sorix replied, radiating admiration for Peter. The TCAM began visiting the fledgling colony of Koresh, admiring how advanced the Felucites were compared to themselves. The Felucites began sharing their knowledge of agriculture and metallurgy with them as a sign of true friendship. They taught them how to cultivate potatoes and how to extract metals from rock, and so on. That night, Zariel appeared to Felix and Lucas. Hello, Zariel. Do you have something important to tell us? Felix asked. Oh, not much. Just wanted to tell you how impressed I am with your cousin. He adopted 2 young Yokon, saved a tribe, called the Tam, from extinction, and they showed him a cave full of resources that will be useful for your firearms project. Kuris is making great progress, but he needs more resources and more helpers. All of that in just 3 weeks. Explain that to me, please, Zariel, Lucas suggested. It's just as I said. The caravan was attacked by the mother Yokon, and after defeating her, Peter went out to investigate why she kept attacking instead of fleeing when she was badly injured. Peter found the nest and the chicks, if we can call them, that he was the first thing they saw when they were born, so they thought he was their mother. Now they hardly ever leave his side. Zariel continued explaining in detail. Oh, and there's something else. He found some life forms based on silicon instead of carbon. It was an experiment I did after finding a planet with those kinds of creatures. Although to Peter, they're just crystals that glow. Back at the colony, Heathcans frequently visited Koreshes, but one morning, several of them found Peter, Sorix, knights, and Amazons engaged in a training exercise with wooden swords. Why are you fighting? Asked a young woman named Shai. We're not fighting. We're practicing. See how we're using wooden swords instead of real ones? Peter assured her. Would you teach us to fight like you? We want to become stronger, the girl asked. This training will be the hardest thing you've ever done. Are you prepared for it? Peter asked. You have shown us the importance of being prepared. What do you think? Peter addressed the question to all the soldiers who were training. We can take turns training you, to fulfill our duties and help you, replied Tamika, one of the Amazons who was part of Koresh's contingent. I don't see why not, Peter replied. Several months passed, and the relationship with the TCAM was strengthening. There was even a certain native woman who had captured Sorix's interest, and he hers. All the symptoms of scurvy they had suffered had disappeared. Sir, I think we should cut more lightstones. For the colony, Sorix suggested. Is that the only reason you want to go there? I wonder if stay has something to do with your interest in being so diligent, Peter said, smiling mischievously. This made the gruff soldier blush intensely. You're right, Sir Peter, he said, lowering his head. "Don't worry, Sorix. If happiness knocks, open the door," Peter replied, placing his hand on his shoulder. Meanwhile, in Felic, Felix and Lucas had finished preparations for the attack on Anko, the fishing village with its shipyard. The journey took several days, but less than it had taken the Gors because Felic's corvettes and caravels were faster. And not to mention that the Vinfos could guide them to catch the best ocean currents for a faster route. Before reaching the port, they decided to anchor at a nearby island and wait for nightfall. "We'll rest for now and attack a few hours after dark. We'll attack the towers with the harpoons from all 5 ships, just as we practiced. First, we'll disembark the invasion force, composed of giants, Talids, Achaeans, and Ogders," Lucas said. Besides Lucas, there were Amazons and knights with him. The rest would stay on the ships to operate the harpoons. These harpoons were mounted on gigantic crossbows because they couldn't yet manufacture enough gunpowder, Lucas assured them. The harpoons had fins near their tips that would expand upon impact with the base of the towers. An ingenious system devised by Gors. The towers were supported by ropes anchored to the ground. The invasion team would stealthily sever these ropes, and the harpoons would deliver the final blow. It was a cloudy night, and the moon was hidden behind the clouds, making the attackers even harder to spot. The infiltration team, composed of Ogders, began cutting the ropes supporting the towers, but not completely, so as not to arouse suspicion. The Gors in the towers, soldiers nearly overcome by sleep and boredom, had no idea what was about to happen. Lucas ordered the boats to line up along the beach. All the crew members readied the harpoons, and at Lucas's signal, they fired them. The harpoons embedded themselves in the bases of the towers with a loud bang, jolting the Gors atop the towers out of their slumber. They sounded a horn to raise the alarm. Lucas understood there was no turning back. The harpoons were attached to long ropes, which were connected to a gear system resembling a wheel on either side of the crossbows that fired the harpoons. The crew began to move the towers to wind the ropes back up. This caused the bases of the towers to give way, and all but one came crashing down. Several of the Gors soldiers atop the towers were killed when they collapsed, but others survived, though wounded. These wounded soldiers were captured and healed by the healers Lucas had brought with him after the attack. This caused both the non-soldier Gors and the human slaves they owned to awaken. They didn't understand what was happening, but they emerged from their houses and huts and saw giants, Talids, and Achaeans marching toward the last tower, their shields intertwined on their backs. Beneath the shields that protected their bodies, the arrows rained at them but remained untouched as they inexorably approached to finish bringing down the tower. This technique, once used by the ancient Romans, was now being employed by the Felicites, known as the testudo or tortoise formation. The Gors atop the tower ran out of arrows. Lucas and the other soldiers seized the opportunity to attack the weakened tower until it fell away from the attackers. The uninjured soldiers fled. The humans didn't know what to do, so they knelt and begged for mercy. "Don't be afraid of us. My name is Lucas. We are from Felic," Lucas stated. "My name is Xandroi. Zariel told me you would come to free us, but I didn't believe him. It sounded too good to be true. It's an honor to meet you," he said, still kneeling. "You don't need to do that, Mr. Xandroi. You can stay here or take refuge in Felic if you wish. Although, it would be helpful if you assisted us. We want to establish a permanent presence here. You know this village better than we do." Lucas explained. "We didn't want to start hostilities, but they did by attacking us," Lucas told him. "Very well, Lord Lucas. We will help you because we need your protection, but the women and children must be evacuated from here. The Gors will not stand idly by. They will kill not only us if they have the chance, but also our families. They will try to recapture or destroy this village, and us with it. But we have been preparing for decades to one day rise up against them. And it seems that day is today," the former slave said. Afterward, Chill and Euphril, enraged, discussed the situation. These Felucites turned out to be even more dangerous than we thought. Not only did they repel the attack on their city, but then counterattacked, seizing the only port capable of building warships. Chill said, "Not only that, but they have warships superior to those of the Gor. We underestimated them at every turn. And Zariel? How is it possible that his servants are better in combat than ours?" Euphril asked incredulously. That night, both Euphril and Chill appeared before Armin. "Not only did you allow the Felucites to defeat you in the attack on Loomis, but they counterattacked, capturing the village of Anko, Yufril said, barely concealing his anger. This news hit Armin like a ton of bricks. But my lords, Armin began, we don't want to hear your excuses. You are the ante. Act like one. You will recapture Anko and then conquer Loomis. Is that clear? Chill asked, his frustration evident. Yes, my lords, the mighty ante replied submissively. When Armin awoke, he tidied himself up and summoned his second-in-command, Luzben. Lords Chill and Yufril have informed me that the Felucides have attacked and captured the village of Anko. I need you to assemble an army to retake it. Oh, and I also want you to expedite the construction of the shipyard in the city of Yufril. Now go. Armin ordered his subordinate. Yes, your majesty, the general replied, bowing. Luzben interviewed the escapees from Anko. Very well. Now tell me what happened. Yes, General Luzben. The Felucides surprised us while we slept. They used devices attached with ropes and destroyed almost all the watchtowers. I don't know how many soldiers died, but when the roar woke us, we saw an army composed of giants, Talits, Akaros, Achaeans, and humans, all led by a human in shining armor. Every single one of them followed his instructions to the letter. Only the human slaves remained. You say there were Talits among them? Yes, my lord, replied the now refugee. This intrigued Luzben greatly. What kind of power do these human Felucides possess that makes all the different races obey them? Even our own Talits fight for them. I believe this is the greatest challenge the Empire has faced since its inception, the general stated. Meanwhile, in Anko, Xantroy had told Lucas about a pile of swords and shields they had hidden for over a century, waiting to one day rebel against their oppressors. Meanwhile, ships came and went from the captured village, transporting soldiers, supplies, and refugees between Loomis and Anko. The weapons were somewhat rusty, but with the help of armorers brought from Felik, some were repaired, and others were recycled into better weapons. The training of Anko's volunteers also began. They would initially serve as the village militia, and later, those who accepted could join Felik's forces. Lucas ordered the construction of walls and other defenses around the village, such as trebuchets and temporary towers, intended to repel an invasion. He also had a group of Kuni volunteers who could patrol the area, whom the enemy would consider mere insects. He also had a small group of Ogders who would serve as scouts. Lord Lucas, I've noticed there are female soldiers among your ranks. How is that possible? Xantroy asked. So you don't believe women can contribute to the defense of your nation? Or am I mistaken? Lucas inquired. The former slave hesitated. Don't worry, Mr. Xantroy. There are many things about our nation that you're not used to, said Lucas as a calming gesture. Just then, an Amazon arrived and bowed to Lucas. Captain Luker, at your service, Lord Lucas. Welcome. I see you've been recently promoted, Lucas said, noticing the insignia pinned to her chest. Yes, my Lord Lucas. Commander Neres determined that I was qualified for my first commission. I have 20 Amazons under my command, the captain stated. Very well, if Neres recommends you. Welcome, Lucas replied. When the officer left, Xantroy couldn't resist his curiosity. Who is this Neres you spoke to the captain about? The old man asked. She's my wife and the first Amazon I trained, Lucas replied, smiling. Oh, was all Xantroy could manage to say? Continue on episode 14.
Okay.